Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here, welcome back to the railway and welcome to another review. Today I'm going to be taking a fresh look at one of my absolute favourite models of all time. Usually during the opening few minutes of each review I say, oh, I wonder what this is going to be like, let's find out. Well, today I'm not going to be saying that because I know what today's model is like and I know just how great it is, but I'm eager to rediscover just how great it is, so I'm still pretty excited. It has been quite a lot of years since I reviewed today's model, and obviously a lot of time has passed since then, a lot of things have changed. I'm really interested, I'm really curious to find out whether it still holds up in 2021, and of course my reviews are more detailed these days, they cover more, so I think if any locomotive deserves that treatment, it is this locomotive. So the model is this. It is the Hornby Class D16, a very, very elegant LNER 440 steam locomotive. And the D16 is still available from Hornby, not the LNER green one, unfortunately. I think that's a crying shame. And I don't think Hornby have released an LNER green one since the initial release, since this one, which is a pity because they sold out pretty quickly, if I remember correctly. So yeah, I think if we talk about this model, it might push Hornby to make more, because I think this is a model that people enjoy and it would be awesome if more people could get to enjoy it. But like I say, this model is still available. The BR black one is still in stock in quite a few places, and I think I've seen a few LNER black ones as well. The RRP is £140.99, which obviously is quite a lot of money, but then compare it to the D class that just came out this year for £200. Yeah, this is 60 quid cheaper than that. And when you see the features that this has, the quality, the performance, all of that, you'll see just what a good price that is. But then again, we don't pay £140 for this. That's the amazing thing. That's the RRP. The retailers tend to sell this for about 126, which is even better. And I think Hatton's have the BR Black one at the time of filming for just £101, which is getting insane if you ask me. And as always, I will include any D16s I can find as affiliate links down in the description, so if you're interested in getting one, do check that out if you'd like to. So we'll see what this thing is like, even though I know, oops, I said it, never mind. We'll rediscover what this thing is like. I hope you enjoy it. I know I'm going to. Let's get started. Alright, the LNER D16, and of course this did not start life on the LNER. The class did exist beforehand. It was a pre-grouping class of steam locomotive, but Hornby have never produced a pre-grouping version of the D16. Now if they were to produce that, it would require quite a bit of redevelopment, because I think the pre-grouping version looked quite a bit different to this. So at the very least it would need a retooled body and such, but I do think if Hornby were to introduce a pre-grouping version of this model, it would be popular, because we've learned over the past few years just how successful and how popular pre-grouping models are. People go crazy for them, and I think this would be amazing to see as an earlier loco. I can dream anyway, but yeah, Hornby, please bring this thing back, even if it is just in the post-grouping form, because it's absolutely fantastic. Anyway, let me show you the end of the box then. So this is the version I went for. This is our 3433 LNER Class D16/3 Claude Hamilton. So this is the first of the class, but after it had been modified into a later condition. And it is number 8900, and this is DCC ready, and it supports a minimum radius curve of 438mm radius. Okay, so let me show you the back of the box. You can see a bit of information. So later on, this was classified as a 2P by British Railways, obviously not very powerful by British Railways standards, but back at the turn of the century when this was introduced, it was quite powerful. And then in the middle, there's a brief history of the class. So as always, if you want to read that, you can pause and do so, but I will give you a briefer history later on. And then on the far end here, you've got Hornby's diagrams that are drawn during the model making process, and these are dated 2014. So getting on for 7 years ago since this model was produced. But as far as I can remember, this is going to still hold up, or that's what we're going to find out. I think that is the case though. Right, are you ready? This is going to be epic. Here we go. Gorgeous, gorgeous loco, this one, and great quality as well. And yep, it is pretty well packaged, so it's pretty much shrouded. You don't get the big reveal when you pull off the sleeve, so the suspense continues, I suppose. Right, let's pull this thing out. Yeah, it's quite a tight package, this one. Right, so one thing I've never done on video, at least, or at least not on a review, is evaluate the mechanism. So we're going to be taking a special look at that today. So let's see if the operating and maintenance instructions offer any clues. So this is for the class D16. Inside, there's almost nothing really that reveals the features of the mechanism. It just shows you where to lubricate, the basic lubrication points, fitting accessories to the buffer beam, body removal, couple of screws. It's quite easy to do. I have done this many times before. Loco to tender connection and DCC fitting. There's an 8-pin socket inside the tender, which is fairly standard for Hornby. Then on the back, yeah, brake rigging fitting, which you can fit if you want. I don't believe this model has brake rigging pre-fitted. No, I can see it in the top there. Right, let's open this up then. Let's rediscover this absolutely gorgeous model. Oh, I can't wait for this. Okay, so we've got the accessory bag right here, which is quite full of accessories actually. So you have got the brake rigging as described, you've got a coupling for the front, and then you've got quite a few painted details inside here. There are guard irons. I assume those are not fitted from the factory because they would foul the front bogie wheels perhaps on tighter curves. Maybe that same thing is true of the vacuum pipes and such, which are not fitted. But if you do want the model to be finished, you've got quite a bit of work to do yourself, but the model still looks good without them because I've never fitted those. Right, here we go. If you're not familiar with this model, you are in for a treat. Here we go. Oh, that was awkward. Yeah, it's never nice putting that much pressure onto a package that has a very expensive model inside. Right, there you go. And as you can see, this does have a really, really nice finish to it, or at least the boiler does. And there is a very, very good reason for that. And that is that the body, well, at least the boiler, is fully die-cast. And this loco is incredibly heavy as a result. In fact, compared with the tender, which is pretty light, the loco feels crazily heavy. Like, you would not believe how much weight a smallish loco can pack into it. I'll weigh it later on so that you can get an idea. But yeah, fantastic weight and also fantastic quality. I mean, the loco is stone cold in the hands. Really nice and weighty. They haven't gone the whole hog and made the running plate out of metal though. I believe that is just plastic, but you can't really complain because the loco does weigh so much, so it's a bit of a non-issue. Anyway, I won't waffle on about the weight and such because just look at how gorgeous this is. It's got all of that lovely lining on it. Such a lovely shape on this as well. I do think the pre-grouping D16 looked even better, even though it wasn't called the D16 in those days. But in this form, it's still gorgeous, isn't it? Absolutely fantastic. And I do think it is this livery that looks best on this model from Hornby. I really do. The L&ER lined black is a close second. It looks fantastic, but I do think this is the better of them, if you ask me. Anyway, a little bit of history then on the class in real life, and then I will show you some of the details up close. The class started life back in 1900 when the very first locomotive of the class, which is Claude Hamilton, as I say, was built to the design of James Holden for the GER. Over 120 locos were produced between 1900 and 1923, though with many variations along the way. The ultimate development being classified as the H88, which eventually became the D16s under the L&ER. And they're also known as Super Claudes. I believe that was one of the nicknames given to them because they were quite incredible for the time. They ran on dual internal 19-inch cylinders and boasted an impressive tractive effort in the region of 76 kilonewtons. Not bad for the turn of the century. And the class was of course very, very grand looking, making the most of that hidden cylinder layout. It had very elegant lines and an extremely spacious cab. When the L&ER acquired the fleet after 1923, the H88s were reclassified to the D16 and they were initially given the L&ER green paint jobs, as can be seen with this model. Now sadly, all of the original locos were scrapped and none of them survived into preservation, although a new build of a D16/2, I think it is being planned. So there she is, Claude Hamilton, up close and personal for you. And even though this is an absolutely beautiful locomotive, the most impressive aspect of it for me is the sheer quality. Now, I've had this loco for a long time, and through the years that I've owned it, this has been handled a lot and it's been run a lot because it's one of my favourite models, like I say. And to my knowledge, not a single piece of detailing has ever dropped off this loco. Now, obviously, that shouldn't be remarkable, that should be the bare minimum, but as you know, I've received loads of engines that were just in pieces after only the journey here, let alone after 5 years of handling and running. So yeah, that is really quite impressive. And the weight is very impressive as well. I've written down some notes. So loco and tender weigh 296 grams, which is more than 60 grams heavier than the 200-pound Dapple D-Class. But it's not as simple as that because the D-Class has a very heavy tender. The tender of the D-Class weighs 75 grams, which is more than 20 grams heavier than the D16 tender, which means that the actual weight difference between the two locos, the important part, is more like, well, it's the best part of 100 grams. This weighs nearly 100 grams more than the D-Class, and so there's no need for traction tyres. This loco does not have any rubber in sight, and it doesn't need it because it's a decent puller. And also because of that die-cast boiler, which is very heavy on this model somehow, you've got the beautiful, beautiful finish as well, which catches the light if you position the lights in the right places just beautifully. So let's take a closer look at this model then. So the decoration is done to an incredibly high standard. So the lining on the boiler is just the tip of the iceberg really, but it is done very, very nicely. A lot of the underframe is lined in red, which is one of my favourite features of the LNER livery actually. It's just superb, isn't it? All around the steps and everything, just fantastic. And then of course you've got the little bits of gold pipework just poking out from behind the steps. That just finishes it off so nicely. The sides of the cab are all lined, as you can see, as well as the running numbers on the side, which are also, you know, high quality print with lots of different colours used. You've got the Claude Hamilton nameplate here, which I don't think is etched, unfortunately. This loco isn't the most detailed in the world. It's very, very good. We have seen better, and I think we probably had seen better, you know, a few years ago when this was released, but the detail's not terrible or anything, but it is missing little details such as the etched nameplates, of course. And then below that you've got the, I think that will be a builder's plate. It's far too small for me to read with the naked eye, but hopefully the close-up lens will do a fair job of picking it out. And then you've got the buffer beams, for instance, which have got the running number printed onto it as well. Very, very nicely done that. And then on the other side, you've got this, well, it's either a Westinghouse pump or part of that powered reversing gear, but look at this. It's a very, very sturdy separately fitted part for starters. So you can touch it, you can handle it, the thing doesn't move and flex, but it's also been decorated with great precision as well. So that's really, really impressive. We'll stick to the theme of decoration for now, and I'll show you the cab detail. The cab detail is very, very good. As you can see, there is a lot of detail picked out. You've got the turning wheels, the regulator appears to be separately fitted. But again, they haven't pulled out absolutely all of the stops as far as detail goes because you haven't got any paintwork on the gauges and such. But that's not a huge deal, even though we have seen slightly better cabs. And I suppose while we're on the subject, the other sort of major missing detail would be the lack of valve gear between the frames. It does look distinctly blank, doesn't it, between the frames of this loco, which is a bit of a shame. I think the B12, which is a very similar loco from Hornby, does have detail between the frames, and that really brings the model to life a bit more. But I think that's more or less about it. And the reversing rod also looks pretty plasticky as well. It's been painted with metallic paint, but it just looks like a bit of plastic. Personally, I do think those look better when they're made of metal. So anyway, let's start looking at some more of the features. So as you can see, the boiler is completely free of any parting lines or anything. It's completely smooth all the way around, apart from where the boiler joins the chassis, where there is a bit of a join. But as you can see, the lining carries on nicely and it all lines up perfectly. And the gap isn't too large, and it's also far enough down the boiler so that you can't see it unless your sort of eyes drop below the level of the loco. So to me, I think that's done pretty well. Then you've got the safety valves here, which are made of metal. Those are metal parts, and it shows. And the whistle, I think, is made of plastic, but it's got a fair finish to it. You can, if you look at it in comparison with those safety valves, you can tell that it is plastic and the finish is slightly different, but overall it's a good whistle as far as these things go. Then of course you've got the lovely wheels, and this is one of the most distinctive areas of the loco because obviously there are no outside cylinders, so you've just got the coupling rods, which are nice and fine, And the wheels too, by the way, are nicely lined as well on the outer rim and on the inner rim. And of course, you can't see the axles poking through the wheels because Hornby produce quality locos and they don't do that sort of thing. And the same is true of the bogie wheels, which again are very, very nicely produced. The loco is complete with the separately fitted metal handrails, which have been painted to match the livery, and over on the other side you've got a little bit of pipe work as well. The smoke box door is also lined, as you can see. You've got that weird sort of grey circle, which is pretty unique actually, don't see that very often. And then you've got the separately fitted smoke box dart, which is very fine and fully separately fitted. The running plate is complete with lamp irons, and the buffer beams do have the separately fitted metal buffers, which are sprung, as you can see. There we go. So yeah, it's a superb locomotive. It's got glazed windows. I don't think I mentioned that. So yeah, nice flush glazing on the cab windows. It's very, very nice. Overall, an amazing looking loco. The tender is also great as well. I love this tender. I've always loved the B12 tender as well because they're so short, aren't they? And they just match this loco in particular so nicely because the loco too is quite short. And it's decorated just incredibly well. So you've got the lovely LNER livery on the upper portion with all of the lining done extremely well. The lettering is very, very good as well. Even if you inspect it up close like this, very, very good effect on that. And then the underframe, as you can see, again continues with that red lining, which I just think is amazing. I think every loco really, regardless of where it came from and its livery, they all should have had some sort of underframe lining on them. I wish I could go back in time and sort of enforce that because it just looks great, doesn't it? Really, really nice and ornate. And of course there's lots of moulded detail down there. All of the axle boxes look great. On the top you've got the coal load. That is a removable coal load, but it looks pretty good, so I've never even thought about trying to remove it because I'd be happy to keep it. One or two brake and water controls and such. None of those are painted or anything, but that is what it is. And around the back, more handrails, more lamp irons. You do have the guard irons fitted around the back. And of course there are guard irons for the front of the loco too to match if you wanted to fit them, but only do that if you've got the wide enough radius curves. And then finally, you've got the NEM couplings fitted to the back of the tender, with of course an optional one for the front of the loco if you choose to fit it. So overall, this is just an incredible looking loco. The finish, the level of detail, it's all really, really good for the money as far as I'm concerned. Yes, I think we've seen a few locos with slightly better detailing in the cab, between the frames, that sort of thing. We've had locos that do have etched nameplates and such, so it's not the most detailed in the world, but it certainly is detailed enough for what it costs. And it certainly is detailed enough to look like an absolutely exquisite model, which I obviously think it is. So this is the part I'm looking forward to. I'm going to investigate the mechanism for you. I'll tell you all about that, and then we'll get this down onto the track and see whether it's still up to giving us a great performance after all of these years. All right, let's do it. So there she is, the beautiful Hornby D16 down onto the track, ready for the test. Now, from my initial review of this years ago, I remember that the performance was pretty good, if I'm remembering correctly. It was very good and consistent, but the crawl wasn't its strong suit. I can't remember being very impressed by the crawl. Astonishingly, I still managed to give this 10 out of 10, I think it was back then, on performance. Yeah, goodness knows how. Obviously, me 5 years ago was bowled over by the beauty of the loco and was blind to its slightly naff performance. Yeah, that's another reason why I want to update this review, because I think my judgment is better these days. So yeah, we'll see whether the performance is as I remember it in just a second. The mechanism though is pretty good. So it's got all-wheel pickup in the tender, as you can see. Very, very subtle pickups. You can't really see them from the outside, but if you look carefully, you can just about see the sort of copper bar which has the pickups on it. But yes, all tender wheels do pick up, and then the 4 loco driving wheels also have pickups on them as well. So you've got 5 pickups per line. That's pretty good. Incidentally, there are no pickups on the front bogie or anything, but that's fairly standard for a loco like this. The loco to tender electrical connection is the old-fashioned type, though I mean that's fair enough. Most locos have this sort of arrangement, but I'm hoping now that Dapol have innovated with their plug-and-play arrangement, it would really be good to see any new locos produced from now on having that updated type of design. So the base keeper plate for the Loco is pretty easy to remove, and it does connect up with spring-loaded contacts, which means you can easily remove the base for cleaning and maintenance. That's absolutely fantastic. The driving wheels have all proper bearings fitted to them. Love to see that. It's just a great feature. Well, it's the bare minimum, but it's good to see it. And then there is just the single driving gear on the frontmost driving axle. So that's pretty good. That's as I would do it. The body removal isn't terribly convenient because you have to remove the front bogie, and also the tender is in the way. There's a screw behind the cab of the Loco, which is slightly annoying. So it's not the easiest to access in the world, but it's infinitely more serviceable than the likes of Helgen's Locos, for instance. And once you get inside, you can see the chassis is incredibly neat and tidy. World's neatest and tidiest chassis. Very, very good. This motor though is a bit of a question mark motor. Obviously it's completely sealed, so I can't see to count how many poles this is. It's going to be either 3 or 5 pole. Some listings describe the D16 from Hornby as having a 3-pole motor with a flywheel. Well, the flywheel bit is definitely wrong, at least going by my example. Other listings describe it as having a 5-pole skew wound motor. So which is it? Have they updated it? Have they changed over time? I don't know. But although I don't know for sure, I'm going to guess this is a 3-pole motor based on the performance. The gauge though is pretty much okay, a tiny little bit tight at 14.5mm back to back, but overall that is not a big issue. Right, so let's have a look. This has been running, of course. I've had this for a number of years. Let's see whether the performance is basically as I remember it. So let's just test that it's still working. And as you can see, it is. It's nice and smooth, reasonably quiet. And if I drive it over the express points at a slow enough speed, it's going to just go out of shot. But it does not cut out thanks to its all tender pickups. So that's absolutely fine. Consistency is good. Now, let's see what the crawl is like. So a little bit of juice, just turning up gently right now. Turning up, turning up, turning up. Nothing's happening. Keep going. Oh, wow. All right, let's just do that again just to verify that it wasn't stalled initially. So as you can see, it just suddenly takes off. There is no crawl period. It just goes straight to medium speed, which is not very good. But we'll do it again just to make sure. There we go, slower. So that's about as slow as it can go. I think it does better in reverse though, slightly. So yeah, I don't know, I can't say for sure to be reasonable whether or not this is a 3 or a 5-pole motor. But I can say that the performance isn't as good as other Locos, so regardless of the number of poles, I would probably be safe to say that the quality of the motor in this model does leave quite a bit to be desired, and this is not the only D16 I own. I also own an LNER black one, and it performs very much the same. The other notable thing is that it's very fast, so if I set this to 50% speed, hang on, it's very, very speedy. I mean, that is probably the fastest you'd ever want it to run, and it reaches that speed at 50% on the controller. So perhaps if it was geared down a little bit to make the speed a bit more sensible, then the crawl would be slightly better as well. But you know, I suppose it's questionable how important the crawl is with a Loco like this. I mean, it's not a slow freight Loco or anything, but as I always say, if a Loco crawls well, then you know that it's got a good quality mechanism and a good quality motor. This one doesn't really, which is a pity. However, the pulling power is really quite something. To say this Loco has no rubber traction tyres, which it doesn't, which is really good. Yeah, the pulling power doesn't seem too bad. So it's got a tractive effort of 0.2 newtons, which equates to around 15 coaches on straight and level track. That's far more powerful than the Bachmann City class, which also doesn't have traction tyres. In fact, the only Locos, the only 440s that are more powerful than this have rubber traction tyres, and that doesn't count. So I'm going to hook her up to these 5 teak coaches. Now, if you remember, the Dapol D-Class, which cost £200, did I mention that? Couldn't manage, I think it was struggling with 4 coaches, and I had to knock it down to 3, was that right? I think it could manage 3. So if this can manage 5 coaches, then I'll be pretty impressed with this. So let's go and see whether it can. Let's reverse. Yeah, it's not a crawler. Real shame about that, because every other aspect of the model is amazing. And yes, it's not the greatest experience trying to get this coupled up to stuff, because it's quite inconsistent at the low speeds. And also notice that the middle axle on the tender doesn't go round. I'm not sure why that would be, but it doesn't seem to be making good contact with the track or something. And my LNER Black D16 is the same, except it's the back axle on the tender, which doesn't spin. So yeah, there's an issue with the tenders on this. It's not just a one-off example. They are quite light, so perhaps a bit more weight in the tender would fix it, because it does seem quite common that some of the wheels don't always go round, which is a bit naff as well. Okay, here we go. That's no use expecting it to crawl. Oh, that's not so bad at that speed. All right, let's go for it. Let's go for about 40 speed, because 50 is a bit too quick. It looks a bit silly. And elsewhere on the layout, I have some of my other absolute favourite 440s. I'm going to run a few of them for you. So on the middle line, I have the Dapol D-Class, which, by the way, is faulty already. Had it just a couple of months. The speed is all over the place. It speeds up, slows down, as you can see. And slows down again, yeah. Another dodgy motor, unfortunately, from Dapol, just like the Terrier. It's not performing well after an unreasonably short amount of time, so I might even consider sending it back, because £200 is far too much money for this thing not to be working properly. And it's got some of my scratch-built coaches. Video on that soon if it's not out already. I will include a link if you want to watch that. And then on the inside line, I've got my LNER Black D16, which looks like almost a completely different loco, doesn't it? But still a lovely loco, still got the die-cast, performs more or less the same, not the greatest crawler, but very good at the higher speeds. Right, let's check in with the LNER Green D16, see how it's handling those coaches. Yeah, to be honest, you wouldn't want it much faster than that, which means the top 60% of the speed spectrum is just wasted on this one. But as you can see, look at that, barely any wheel slip. And I'm pretty sure, I mean, this track is coming up to needing a clean. I'll be doing it this week. If I clean the wheels of the loco and the track, I'm pretty sure it would do 6 coaches. Whereas this D-Class, I did clean the track during that review, and it still couldn't do more than 3 coaches. Without the traction tyres though. You fit tyres, it'll do better, but that doesn't count for very much. Okay, so yeah, the D16 at the higher speeds, which is I suppose the most important thing for this loco, it is a good performer, but obviously I'm not usually very forgiving for poor crawls, so that's going to be the case with this one. Not an impressive crawl, unfortunately, and that is an even bigger shame with this loco, because every other aspect of it is absolutely marvellous. So had they just included a slightly better quality motor with a flywheel, for which there would be space, by the way, in that chassis, yeah, this would have been an almost faultless model, as far as I'm concerned. Not that I'm very into accuracy and realism and such, as long as it looks convincing to me, as long as it's put together nicely, and as long as the level of detail is good, I'm happy. Maybe if you're more of an expert on the prototype, you might be able to see things that I've missed. But as far as I'm concerned, this is a really, really lovely model. Decent performance, pretty good puller. Overall, really, really big fan of this thing. What a lovely, lovely engine. There we go. Let's have some ratings then for the absolutely gorgeous Hornby class D16. So the level of detail, I've given a very respectable 4-star. I've got nothing but praise for the decoration and the livery application, which has been done to an incredibly high standard. Looks amazing, great finish. Yeah, really, really good. And the level of detail generally on the model is pretty good. I mean, we've got fairly good painted cab detail. Quite a lot of separately fitted parts. I love the metal safety valves, but then again, 1 or 2 details have been better on other models. We've seen better detailed cabs, we've seen metal reversing rods that look better, valve gear between the frames, etc, etc. Not a bad level of detail by any means. The performance, it's a real pity about the performance, but I have had to give it 2.5 star. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a very smooth runner, it's very consistent, but that crawl is just not the best, is it? Now, I'm not saying 100% for certain that the motor is to blame for that, but generally, if it's a good quality 5-pole motor with a flywheel, I would expect to see a better crawl than this, which is why I do suspect that there is just a 3-pole motor inside this one. It's a great shame, because it's a really, really high quality mechanism. With a good quality motor to match, this would be an amazing performer. Also, the gearing seems a little bit high because it runs very, very fast, even at 50% speed, so slightly more competent gearing might improve the slow speed as well. The pulling power, though, is pretty good. 15 coaches, well, 0.2 newtons of tractive effort, around 15 coaches on straight and level track. I think that makes this the most powerful 440 I have that does not run traction tyres. It's It's pretty good. It's very, very respectable. As you could see, 5 coaches, no problem at all really. So the mechanism I've given 4-star. Overall, the mechanism is really, really good. I just wish we were seeing a better quality motor. Even if it is a 5-pole motor, a better quality one would no doubt bring about better performance, and a flywheel, of course. Besides that though, yeah, fantastic, fantastic mechanism. Loads of pickups. You've got 5 pickups per rail, which is more than adequate. You've got proper turned metal bearings, which is great. All of the mechanism is nicely covered up. Very, very glad to see that. Yeah, it's a really, really good mechanism overall. The quality then, again, 4.5 stars. Generally speaking, the build quality is amazing. Like I say, I've had this model for years, nothing has dropped off. Can't fault the build quality. I love the die-cast boiler, that brings the model so much weight and so much quality. Yeah, you really do get what you pay for in terms of that. I do think, again, slightly better quality motor, a few more metal parts, a metal reverser rod might have been nice to see. Yeah, just a few little tweaks and this would easily get 5-star on quality. Value for money then, the RRP is £140.99, which is a little bit on the expensive side, but then compare that to some newer models such as the Dapple D-Class, which is about £60 more expensive. Yeah, actually that doesn't sound too bad, and of course you pay much less than that at the retailers. I mean, the going rate is around £127 and Hattons have some at £101.50, which is a pretty good reduction from the RRP. Obviously it's not quite Oxford Rail cheap, is it? I mean, if we were paying 89 quid for this, that would make it a bargain and a definite 5-star. Yeah, it's not quite that cheap, but overall I think it is worth the money. So that is an overall score of 7.88 out of 10. Yeah, slightly better motor, slightly better performance. That would have been a very high score indeed. But as it is, here it goes into the logbook. There it is, 11th place above the Hornby M7 and below the Bachmann E7. Yeah, overall it's pretty good. Pity about the performance, but overall decent loco. Alright folks, well, thank you very, very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that one. Do let me know what your experiences of the Hornby D16 are. Are there some out there with flywheels and 5-pole motors? I mean, take a look inside yours if you're brave enough. Does yours look the same? Does it have a flywheel? Does the motor seem different? I'd be really interested to know whether the listings describing this as having, you know, flywheels and 5-pole motors are just wrong, or whether there are actually different D16s with different mechanisms. I'd be interested to know. I doubt it, I very much doubt it, but I don't know. You know, it's possible, it is possible. And I suppose for £140 or whatever Hornby are charging these days, this would be a much more reasonable purchase if it had a 5-pole motor and a better quality mechanism. So yeah, I hope that is the case. But I'm more than happy with mine. They do the job. It's many years in, still working properly. Can't say the same for every model, and from some manufacturers you certainly can't say the same. So from that perspective, from longevity point of view, I can say with confidence that these locos shouldn't let you down. You never know for sure, but mine certainly haven't. So yeah, lovely, lovely engine, and I've thoroughly enjoyed revisiting it here today. So I hope you have as well. Thanks for watching, you take care, and I will see you very, very soon for some more videos. Alright, cheers everybody, take care.